Good afternoon, everybody. On this Thursday, May 8th, 2025, I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride home. And we were discussing Pope Watch, and then the white smoke billowed, and we have a new Pope. We'll get all into it. First Pope ever from the United States of America. It is Chicago Pope, Pope Leo the 14th. We'll have that for you. Plus more to do with Clayton Echard, the bachelor wrongfully accused of being the father of someone's unborn twins. She's tripling, quadrupling down in her denials, and we got some more tea to share from that story. And Justin Baldoni, are there bots? Am I a bot? Is my audience bots? You guys let me know, as The Guardian has a source saying 80% of Baldoni supporters are bots. I am calling bot shit on that one. That's BS. So then we'll get into that and tariff talk, as we look like we may have a preliminary deal with the UK. So one country down, 300 to go. Penguin Island, you're next. All these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. Well, it's not every day that we have monumentous world news to report on, but today is the day. We might not see a new pope for decades. We just got our new pope. The white smoke billowed. I'll share what several news organizations had to say. It's almost like a sporting event, right? You've got a packed Vatican City. They're all cheering, waiting for that white smoke. Again, if the smoke's not white, if it comes out black, it means the vote didn't go through yet. But of course, white smoke means they have learned who their new pope is going to be.
This just in.
What?
We have white smoke coming out of the Sistine Chapel. This means that we have a new pope. It is the third vote that's been taken. This is quite frequent timing. This is day 2.
All right, so they did it on day 2. They did their third vote, and we're going to get into the Pope, but here's a close-up shot of, and there was a seagull right next to the smoke, so the seagull got a really, but listen to the moment. Here's the moment the smoke starts to come out. You have tens, if not hundreds of thousands, millions of people watching online as they wait for this moment. Listen to the crowd erupt. Vatican City celebrates as white smoke billows from the Sistine Chapel chimney. There it is. The crowd goes wild. The seagulls, like, why is everyone looking at me? And I Googled seagulls, and they say in some cultures, seagulls are a sign of good luck and positive change ahead. Every time I've seen a seagull, it's trying to eat my, French fries at the beach. But either way, this seagull may be good luck here. And here's the moment the Today Show was there, of course, and here's the moment that they saw the white smoke themselves.
Oh, Morgan! Is that it? Morgan, we've got, look at that white smoke coming out of the chimney and the seagull there. A pope has been chosen. There you are. The papal conclave has chosen a new pope.
And again, so there it is, the crowd cheering. But more interesting than the Pope being chosen is the surprise shocker. The first time in the history of Catholicism, the Pope comes from the United States of America, and it is Robert Prevost, a.k.a. Pope Leo the 14th. 14's my lucky number here. Leo's my grandfather's name. What does this mean? I don't know. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost of the United States has been elected the 267th Pope and will soon step onto the balcony of St. Peter's Basilica as the new leader of the world's 1.4 billion Catholics. From Chicago, Illinois, the first ever Pope of the U.S., Pope Leo the 14th. Here's the moment he first emerged with the, just the regal sort of like opening of the curtains, and it's quite a scene. You don't have to be Catholic to see history in the making here. So there he is, entering for the first time as Pope. I mean, you're a far way away from Chicago, right? I mean, first of all, Chicago's got good deep dish pizza. They've got their Italians there. And all of a sudden, he's in Vatican City, its own country within Italy. And he gives a speech, but he gives the speech in Italian. So I'm not going to share it for you guys right now. But people are wondering, what does this mean? I mean, is this a... like politically speaking, how does this Pope align with his values? We saw Pope Francis wanting to end wars and sort of open up the Catholic Church away from hateful rhetoric and more to inclusivity. I'll say this, and here's all I'll say. As someone who was raised Catholic, what I am now is really, I'm not one for labels, right? But I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And I will say this about religion. I'll start with the negative. At its worst, it's divisive. At its worst, It controls people. At its worst, it's bent in a direction which can lead to fear-based judgment and a culture of purity that's unattainable. That's at its worst. And that's when human men, just mere mortals that don't understand the power of love and prosperity, that's at the worst when men get involved in ruin religion. At its best, I wanted to end with something positive. At its best, religion can unite people. It can give them faith in a bigger purpose. It can unify people to spread positive messages. The vicarious feelings and collective feelings of love reverberate throughout people like a radio signal. It can be used to broadcast to a greater group a transitionary feeling that can elevate us to a better place, a time where the world's divided. We have wars breaking out in different countries. We have kids starving. We need to, to communicate that we live in a world that can be prosperous. And I hope that this Pope does just that, communicates the things we have in common as humans that can elevate us and to not live in some sort of fear-based rhetoric. I think that's the direction they're going to go. But again, we'll have to wait and see more from the Pope as it comes. All right, up next, Bachelor Clayton Echard's in the news. Now that Bachelor Clayton's accuser, Laura Owens, has been charged with 7 different counts of felonies, and she's basically denying that she ever faked a pregnancy, people are wondering, will other charges come about? I got this tweet. I wonder if in all of the devices recovered from Laura Owens, if Rachel Mitchell holds the golden key to the federal crime of filing false paperwork to California courts in the case of Laura Owens versus Dave Neal, where she used a fake identity to quash a subpoena. That's right. If you're new to my channel and aren't familiar with this, Laura Owens pretended to be a black journalist named Chase J. Jones. Now, I could do a whole TED Talk on Chase J. Jones, and maybe I will. And Chase J. Jones was someone who she used to try to cancel Clayton Echard. Now, she denied that she was Chase J. Jones, but when I got sued for harassment, we filed a subpoena to try to get some information from Chase J. Jones. Chase J. Jones never wanted to talk to us, never wanted to do a FaceTime. We had the funds that our audience raised to get a lawyer, to try to have our lawyer contact Chase J. Jones. Chase J. Jones has a VPN run out of Paris, a virtual P.O. box out of Seattle, and yet Chase J. Jones' domain for their website came out of Scottsdale, Arizona. We later figured out with the help of our audience that there was a 2-factor authentication from Chase J. Jones' YouTube channel, which led directly to Laura Owens' cell phone. Laura is Chase J. Jones, and Laura filed fake documents in California. Can you believe that? And will she be held accountable for this? I'm not too sure. If there's anything I can do, or any lawyers in California that can help pursue justice, I would prefer if people weren't allowed to use fake identities to harass and bully other people. I would prefer that, especially as a comedian and a journalist. I would like to know that you can't just create somebody's name and abuse people through the court system. But how interesting. Now, Laura and her family have been accused of raising $120,000 in their GoFundMe, which was money that was supposed to go to Laura's sick father. No, this isn't Laura's sick father. This is Laura's sick father's friend, Rich Lieberman. He has reported that Laura Owens' parents deny that they're using the money to fund Laura Owens' legal expenses. Have a listen.
But they deny that they've used any of that money and said they would go even as far to document if there's any legal representation on the other side that wanted to show that they indeed were not using any of that money.
I would love that. Yeah, please, Rich, if you could help facilitate a full audit of the GoFundMe money. Now, listen, Laura Owens' father has Parkinson's disease and he is sick, but he also was a multimillionaire. He's in the Radio Hall of Fame. He was making $1.4 million in San Francisco. And when the San Francisco Chronicle ran a story about Ron Owens and his GoFundMe, they briefly discussed Laura Owens' paternity issue, but then when Laura Owens pushed back on them, they did a dirty delete. Very sketchy stuff coming from the journalism department there at San Francisco Chronicle, because, it seemed as if they were doing free advertising for Ron Owens and the money they were acquiring. Laura, of course, continues to ride horses and, travel for horse jumping. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars. I'm guessing she's not making any money back with the participation trophies she's getting. But the question now remains, is there a horse jumping competition at the Maricopa County female penitentiary system? And I don't know. We'll have to find out what they have for extracurricular activities, as she could get, who knows, up to 20.5 years in prison if she doesn't do some sort of plea where she admits to the fraud she's committed. Maybe she will admit to the fraud. Maybe she'll say, I made up all these things, but I was still pregnant, in which case it's like, whatever, you're a liar, you're a fraudster. That's your identity now. All right, coming up next, speaking of fraudsters and speaking of main lamestream media, we've got The Guardian in a very pro Blake Lively article that is going to leave you guys very upset. This story coming next. Okay, right before I get into the Baldoni story, I'd be remiss if I didn't give flowers virtually and physically to the most beautiful woman in the world, my wife, on her 38th birthday. This was just 1 year ago. She was 9 months pregnant. Actually, the baby was born 2 days before her 37th birthday. But from this in one short year to this beautiful mom, she's done such a good job transitioning into motherhood, and she's been just so full of joy. It's been amazing to see her really just flourish as a mom here. So happy birthday to Tasha Marie Courtney, love of my life, and also the mother of our baby August, who just had his first birthday. Yes, if you're wondering, it was a busy week. Born my birthday May 1st, 40, then Augie May 6th, 1, then Tasha May 8th, 38. So combined, we are 79 years old, all three of us. Still, the ripe age of being a president. Okay, so let's move into what we have here. This is just a Baldoni story. It's the misogyny slop ecosystem, how Candace Owens and the American right declared war on Blake Lively. This will be interesting because we've seen this play out before. You can almost see this story from a mile away. They kind of tried to run this story in Business Insider when I was interviewed, but I think I gave them such a good interview that they had nothing to run with. I believe my interview was so good, they realized it didn't fit into the narrative that they were trying to look for. This narrative being that there is a right-wing hijacking of culture war issues and whatnot. And of course, I am a proud progressive member of, I don't want to say the Democratic Party, because the Democratic Party is so toxic in that it's got so many different layers to what it is. There's the there's the progressive left, there's the woke left, then there's the sort of corporate left, and it's all over the place. I stand for simple things like Medicare for all, paid family leave, and a higher minimum wage. I think that the poor have gotten poorer and the rich have gotten richer, and that we need to shrink that gap to have a more robust middle class. So sue me. But either way, I won't. And I say that because, you get labeled things all the time. I've been labeled far left to alt-right and everything in between. I'm just a dude from New England who sees injustice that needs to be handled. But here's what's interesting. The ins and outs of the saga itself are almost too labyrinthine to follow. In a nutshell, and by the way, how rich though to say, oh yeah, it's so complicated. It's so and it's like, well, to those that took the time to meticulously read everything, it's not that complicated. The more you break it down, it's really a story of a guy bending over backwards to please his female lead. And in the end, she took measures that must have crossed boundaries from all the information that's been presented to try to commandeer the film. At least so much as to say she never provided any evidence, so we've seen so far, that has proven all of her claims. He alleges that her and her husband tried to take control of the film. And again, but for them to say, well, it's almost too hard to follow. I don't think so. All this activity has whipped up a maelstrom of clickbait, content creators, celebrity media, and prominent public figures, is that me, feeding off each other's output, recycling and regurgitating the same low-quality, primarily anti-women information. I object, good sir. Low quality? Are you going to tell me that this gavel that's not nearly falling apart that was sent to me by a fan, are you going to tell me that this is low quality? How about this Home Goods magnifying glass that I got for $9.99? I object, good sir. Low quality. I mean, this is just standard smear campaign happening, trying to discredit content creators. First, you come after their politics. Now, they're criticizing Kirsty Flaw, who shared the story where Blake was a bitch to her. And here's their response. They say, well, no one would even know about this. The amount of people who have recirculated that clip and who have spoken about that specific interaction, they'll make 20, 30 minutes of content about it. And their audience will eat it up because they also thought she was really rude. Doy. And it's like if everybody wasn't recycling that clip, you wouldn't have known about it because that happened 10 years ago. Yeah, if everybody didn't go on the internet, you wouldn't have the internet. Like, what's your point? You know, people recirculate things because it's evidence that they're seeing Blake as an unlikable twerp. And then they do the final, right? First, it's like come after people for their politics, then come after them for making money. And they say now Kirsty's selling a t-shirt called Justice for Justin. Ooh, boy. And trust me, the people that write the articles for The Guardian are making money too. I mean, you literally click on their website and the first thing they ask for is $15 a month. What? The Guardian, you click no, and then they just hit you with a barrage of ads and doodads and trinkets and whatnot. So no, thank you. We're good. As a similar picture is emerging with the Blake and Baldoni, with Blake Lively and Baldoni, that being similar to Johnny Depp. They're trying to compare the two. When they investigated Depp and Heard online, they said there was an analysis of 500 tweets. They found that support is overwhelmingly pro-Baldoni. So sharing hashtags like Blake Lively is a liar and Justice for Justin Baldoni by a ratio of 1 to 150 to 1 to 300, depending on which metric you use. Judging by the age of the accounts and the number of times they have posted, I would estimate more than 80% of pro-Justin Baldoni posts are inorganic. Well, let's do a poll over here, whether you're checking this out on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave a comment. Let me know, are you organic or inorganic? I'd love to hear. I'm organic. This is a real 40-year-old man here, not a bot. I mean, part of me is going to be a bot when I got to get my knee replaced because I'm getting so old. But as far as right now, I am mainly organic. Now, maybe you got some lip filler. Maybe you're not completely organic. But for the most part, we're organic, right? You got a nose job. That doesn't make you inorganic, right? All right, anyway, from their supporters' perspectives, the victimhood is the other way around. They say men like Depp and Baldoni are being persecuted. And I don't like the idea of persecution like it's all men are getting persecuted. It's like, no, these are just stories where the victim happened to be a man. And again, I don't even want to compare it to Johnny Depp because that's a completely different story. You might say, oh, Depp was an abuser. That's irrelevant to Baldoni's case, right? It's got nothing to do with Baldoni. They've never met. They want to make it seem the same. But here's where I do agree. They say the Me Too movement was brought on by liberal progressives who started a movement of let's believe all women all the time, no matter what. And slowly but surely, that shroud has been breaking. Now, I don't agree with that. What I agree with is what comes next. Me Too, hashtag Me Too's initial slogan was just believe women, not believe all women, right? They took like the all lives matter and slapped it into believe women and made believe all women, which again, whenever you say believe all of anything, it's going to be like, yeah, but what about that? And it's like, yeah, no, I understand. The idea behind believe women is the same as any, which is like believe people when they tell you something happened, but save space for evidence to come through, right? So you could believe Blake, but don't trash Justin. Let it play out. And as it played out, people did believe Blake, right? People believed Blake. This actually proves that the system works, is they believed her and then they waited for the evidence and it didn't come in. And it was like, well, maybe we jumped too far ahead of this. This is a right-wing multimedia campaign that is about painting women as inherently lying and manipulative, says Bannet Weiser. That's why people say Me Too has gone too far. And again, I don't get into the generalization of stuff because whenever you generalize and go, well, what about this and what about that? It's like, no, specifically speaking, this isn't about a greater cause. This is about what's right and what's wrong within this unique biosphere of Blake versus Justin. And you have to kind of stay to the facts there because people will then commandeer it for their side. Nobody really knows who is telling the truth in the lively Baldoni saga, but if the case ever does come to trial, as well as sending the internet into meltdown, it could shed light on far more than simply who said and did what to whom. Now, listen, if this case goes to trial, people are going to see the judicial system play out, and they're going to believe what they want to believe. But with Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard, a jury that was presented all the information sided with Depp. That's just how it worked. That's the judicial system playing out. They don't always get it right, but it's a jury of your people, and they get it right the majority of the time. Well, right here, it's like, Baldoni versus Lively. They say no one really knows who's telling the truth. Maybe not, but there are plenty of circumstances where it's been proven that Blake Lively has outpunted her coverage. She made claims that were objectively, bent sideways. She stretched in a Pilates class to configure herself into a victim when she really wasn't. Oh, he's biting my lip. Really? We didn't see that. Oh, he's doing this, or he's smelling me, or all these claims she made. In hindsight, you go, well, that's not how it played out. And we did watch it. So anyhow, there's your update. I did want to share one thought from our good pal Chris here, the crisis PR expert. So up next, here's what Chris had to say about this sloppy article. Chris basically goes over the article we just read for you, and now he talks about the sort of small sample size they use to develop these quote-unquote bots.
Before I go on, I will say that there are some real caveats here to think about and to keep in mind. First, the sample size of the research is incredibly small. We're talking about 500 posts on one platform. Second, most of the conversation, and this is where the one platform piece comes in, most of the conversation about Blake and Justin, I think, isn't really happening on X or Twitter or whatever we call it today. It's really on TikTok, it's on YouTube, and it's on Instagram.
And that's the problem with the sloppy journalism that's going on here is you can find a confirmation bias wherever you want to look. You can find something that looks shady, but overall, there's a very robust conversation that's happening. There's hours of conversations with legal experts and behavioral panel experts and lawyers and commentators and this and that. So either way, and then it was sort of exposed that the person who wrote this article is a regular sort of commenter in a pro-Blake subreddit. So clearly not much bias going on there. All right. Well, in other news, let's jump into it. We are covering the sort of tariff issue happening. I posted that video of me going to Walmart and the shelves were bare, and a lot of people were like, Dave, this is fear-based. You're trying to divide everybody. And it's like, no, I'm just letting you guys know what's happening out there. Here is the Seattle Port Commissioner saying there are no ports, there are no ships in the port. Have a listen.
Over my shoulder here, I'm looking out at the Port of Seattle right now, and we currently have no container ships at berth. And that happens every once in a while in normal times, but it is pretty rare. And so to see it tonight is, I think, a stark reminder that the impacts of the tariffs have real implications. It means that we don't have longshore workers on the dock right now unloading merchandise. We don't have trains taking that merchandise to inland ports and all the way across the country to places like Des Moines, Iowa, and Chicago, Illinois. And that's hundreds of jobs right here in our region and across the country. You have none at your port right now? We currently do not have any container ships at port right now. That's correct.
All right. And how long does that take to unload and get to your Walmart distribution centers and turn into your kid's piñata? You promised Jimmy a piñata for his 10th birthday. Guess what? You better get some cardboard, bitch. You're making it yourself. All right, let's move it along. How much of our Here is a question about the supply chain with China. Now, there are great concerns about letting other countries sort of be in control of critical infrastructure. I said this after the pandemic. We have all of these empty factories, Detroit, and plenty of space here. We should definitely have pandemic response, medical systems all in our country, so we don't have to rely on other countries. But you don't get that by putting universal tariffs on. You get it by tariffing specific industries and also incentivizing corporations to come back to the U.S. Have a listen.
How much of our drug supply is controlled by China?
We're so dependent on China that if they shut the door on sending medicines to us, our hospitals would shut down within a couple of months.
In the case of some drugs, like antibiotics, China has a total stranglehold.
Yeah, so again, an instance where, getting the right infrastructure ready in our country would be great. But not every product that's made abroad should be made here and can be made here. And the universal tariffs are going to show the empty shelves for those types of products. What they should have done, and a lot of people are saying they should have given at least a 6-month heads up so that people could get their supply chains in order to figure this out. Because, there's going to be companies that they go, you know what, I'm just going to go from China and I'm going to make stuff in Vietnam now. Or it's still cheaper to deal with the tariffs and make something in Sri Lanka. And it's like, that's globalization. But, in the cases where things can be made here, they should, but not the way that they're going about it.
Okay, we have
here is Ryan Grimm's update on the trade deal reached between the U.S. and the U.K. and put like some pumping on the brakes here because nothing's in writing.
Trade deal with the United Kingdom. And markets are reacting positively. They're way up today, 400, 500 points. So why? What does it mean? Well, first of all, we don't actually have a deal. It turns out the UK Prime Minister said this is just the outlines of a deal, and these things often take a year or two to hammer out the details. But the gist of it is that we have a free trade arrangement between the US and the UK that will allow steel to ship back and forth between us, and we and the UK will both keep 25% tariffs on steel outside of the UK and the US. In exchange for us allowing like 100,000 UK cars to come in at just a 10% tariff rather than the 25% tariff, the UK is offering to basically let big tech firms operate in the UK without charging some digital tax.
So basically, there are reciprocal tariffs that have been lowered for different products between the two. So again, I mean, are these tariffs on Rolls Royces going to make a difference into our, income? I'm okay if we want to tariff luxury goods. I think that's fine. It's like pay more money if you want to buy luxury, and we can use that to maybe fund school systems. I'm okay with that. But again, this is just the first deal that is potentially going to happen. But I think this is going to be a big PR win because they can say, look, we're making progress. And it's like, okay, you're going to need a lot of these PR wins while there is still no containers in the ports. Because let me tell you something, these shipping containers were not full of Rolls Royces. They were full of random things that make the world go round. Okay, I live in a neighborhood here where there's a lot of corporate housing. There are private equity firms that raise all of this money to then build hundreds of homes at the same time, and then they'll rent them out to people, and then the private equity makes all the money, and people can't buy their first home, and yada, yada, yada. And I now live in Tennessee, and I've complained about what's going on, and people have said this is because of Democratic policies, which I'm like, this is insane. Tennessee is a super red state. It is red across the board. Every government official in the majority is Republican. So clearly, they are taking farmland, and they are selling it to private equity firms, and then they're turning it into cheap properties. And you could say what you want about that. Does it fix the housing crisis? Maybe in the short term, but then people don't get to own land. Well, now Ro Khanna explains the craziest story of the day, what happened last night.
At 1 a.m. last night, the Republicans passed an amendment to sell off public land in this country. That has never been done before in modern history. They are selling public land in Nevada and in Utah to the highest bidder. We need to protect our public parks. We need to protect our public land that belongs to all of us. We can't sell this off to corporate interests.
Well, now you can go to, what's your favorite state park? You can go to see the beautiful arches in Moab, Utah, sponsored by Dasani. I don't know how they're going to do it. Are they going to put billboards on the different, what do they call hoodoos, the little structures? Anyway, go see your parks while they exist. I don't mean to be so dire. That's where it is. And by the way, I have to say, I don't think the Democrats are handling the housing crisis in a good way either. There needs to be a better way to get first-time home buyers foot in the door, right? Most people that can buy want to buy, and most people that want to buy can't buy, and it's because it's incredibly, inflated the market, and they're stuck basically being, subsistent, living in some feudalist society where you got to pay some landlord who was able to buy a home for $30,000 in the 70s, and somehow they're considered smarter than us. No, we're just, it's just a tough time to be to be a person who doesn't own property right now. And I think that the Democrats should come together and say, hey, all of this housing that's owned by private equity, it's got to go. It's got to go. We have a housing crisis, and we can't be having somebody owning 15 rental properties when people can't get their first home. I'm sorry if you're a landlord and you have a couple properties, but that's how I feel about it, is that we need to get people that need, to be able to generate wealth and not have home buying be a house hack for someone else to make money off of, not when there's a crisis. Maybe if we get to a point when everyone owns homes, then you can do that. But right now, it seems as though this sort of house hacking has been another late stage capitalistic thing to come from technology. And, people will talk about it. Well, I'm a good landlord and I mow the lawn. It's like, cool, I get it. I have family that are landlords. I'm not saying own an extra property as a bad thing, but to own 50 or 100 and pimp the market up to a place where people can't get out of renting, that doesn't help all of us. And we're here to help, right? Anyway, we'll have to see if Pope Leo XIV has anything to say about it. Will we have a papal conclave in Chicago? Deep dish, blessed by the Pope? We'll have to see. Boy, if the White Sox can't win a World Series now, that's on you, God. Home field advantage. Anyhow, Angels in the outfield. That's it from me. I'll be back in the morning. It'll be a wacky one tomorrow. We're going to have a little extra Baileys in the coffee and really giddy up. So stick around for that. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.